Welcome, everybody. We are live on East versus West AMA session with me and Robert Baxter. My name is Dexter Tan. I am the head of operations and Robert, the CEO. So we are going to go through all our chat and I'll try to read out the questions and we'll try to answer it the best that we can. And yeah, so I'm going to get started. Now, obviously, there's a little delay in the stream and in person, so the questions have not showed up yet. But, Robert, before the questions start showing up, maybe you can tell me, what did you think of the last event?
I thought it was great. The venue was spectacular. It's going to be hard to beat the Arlington Esports Stadium. Technology was amazing. The video quality, incredible. So overall, I think it's big. There's obviously things that we can and will improve on for the next shows and the next events. So it just keeps getting better.
All right, yeah. Well, thank you. Okay, next. So our first question came in, and the question is, what's the main visa issue with East versus West Canada? Maybe you want to take that.
Yeah, so we thought getting into Canada would be a little easier than the U.S., and it's actually harder right now for some reason. The Prime Minister has made it more difficult, apparently. We've talked to our Canadian immigration attorney, and it's tough. We want to be in Toronto. We think that'll be the biggest event, and it'll break all of our records. We just can't do it right now because the government is making it more difficult. We're hoping that it's going to be temporary and that we'll be able to get through this either by the end of the year or beginning of next year, that things will loosen up.
And maybe you want to tell us more about the visa situation for athletes coming into the United States, and what are we doing to address that?
So in the United States, we also thought it would be easier with the new administration. It's actually more difficult than it was before with the new administration because they are restricting people coming into the United States quite heavily. So for Europeans, it's not very hard to get in. For the non-EU countries, it's more difficult to get in. So we're taking steps to remedy that. We can do one-pass visas, which is what we're doing right now to get people back in, like Levon, for example, and others from Kazakhstan and from Russia.
Okay. Well, thanks for that answer. The next one that they have was people asking about the pay-per-view numbers and the higher count for the pay-per-view quantity, and how did it change how we pay the athletes? Is there any correlation to that?
Do you want to, I mean...
No, I'll direct it to you. If I'm comfortable taking it, I can take it. Not a problem.
So repeat that question.
So the question was, how are athletes' pay connected to pay-per-view sales?
Okay, yeah. So it's way out of proportion, according to all the other sports that we know of that we can track. We're paying much higher percentages, and from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense. But we're looking at the long view. So as long as we can increase fan base and get more people watching arm wrestlers and arm wrestling, we'll get to the right numbers and the right percentages that way. But if we were to do a normal business model it wouldn't work.
Yeah, and also to clarify, some of the athletes have a contract, and their pay is pretty high regardless of the pay-per-view numbers. So the athletes are, and the league was started by Ingen, and he's all about the athletes, so they are
Yep.
fairly compensated that way. Now the next question. Now I know there are several questions about the audio. I will address that later on the whole AMA session, so that way we don't have to repeat that again. But yes, I will address the audio question. Now the next one, Robert, is can you explain the rules in ref script moving forward? Has been lots of moving allowed in the past?
Has lots of moving been allowed in the past? Is that
Yeah.
the question?
Yeah. Well, so maybe you can just clarify what the ref script entail.
So yeah, the ref script, we follow WAF standards with a little bit more looseness to the WAF. So we do allow a little bit of movement, but yeah, it's if people know what the WAF rules are or ref script is, it's fairly tight, and for viewership and for fans, we believe, and Ingen, is the one who actually sets the rules for EVW and King of the Table. So we're just trying to make it more viewable, but it is based on WAF.
So here's another question: is EVW arm wrestling thinking of partnering with WWE or any other major promotions?
No, we're really not at this point. We haven't even thought of that or talked about that. We are looking at partnering possibly with Strongman, and so that would be one area that I think makes sense at this point.
Okay. Now, unstoppable side pressure. You ask, when will audio be finally fixed? I'll answer that later. Can we hire new people instead of keeping the same people just because they're family? Well, I'm not quite sure whose family, really. Matter of fact, most of the people are new. And what we experience as we travel around to the new venues that have never done any arm wrestling is that occasionally the venue will force some of their staff to work with us. And with them not knowing anything about arm wrestling, it is a challenge. So like in this case, and I'll explain a little bit more, we had to use new people. So it's always new people. And that's really one of the big issues that we have to address. Let's see. Okay, well, Diabolical Billy, he asks, Oi, be honest with me, mate. Is it true your Five Guys burgers are enhanced? Like your stable of contract pullers, juicier, beefier, suspiciously explosive? Because I bit into one and nearly tested positive for side pressure. I think that was more of a...
That's funny. No, we don't require our athletes to to eat Five Guys burgers, but Devin really likes Five Guys burgers, and we want to have a Five Guys challenge with athletes at some point.
Yeah. I think that would be pretty interesting content. How much do athletes eat?
How much can they eat?
Oh, how much can they eat?
So Michael Todd would like to be part of that contest, and Devin would like to be part of it as well.
That would be awesome. Andriy Volkov. Yes, I will address more on the audio in a second. Okay. So I will address this because somebody asked about the old press conference versus the new press conference. So we had a hiccup when it came to building out the backdrop for the press conference. We were told that we had a certain amount of time to build it out, and things changed at the very last second. And all these designs, they take place sometimes a few minutes before the deadline, because we have sponsors that comes in that they can't commit until the 11th hour, which makes it really, really difficult to finalize designs early enough. And so in this case, we were told the wrong deadline for the posters. Well, sorry, for the backdrop. And without a large backdrop, we decided that it may be better if we switch to a king of the table. Well, how we did it on the press conference over the arm wrestling table versus having the traditional sit down, just because we didn't have a big backdrop to cover the whole thing. So that's kind of the challenge. And then I know in the past, say like East vs. West 15, we had the press conference exactly where we had our event, because we had the LED walls. Now, that's not always possible because, as you all know, venues are incredibly expensive. They are tens and tens of thousands a day. And so adding one additional day is a challenge. But the other flip side, that even if it's not a monetary issue, it's also that the crew, the production crew that we hire out will need at least a couple of days to set the stage up and all the lighting and and all the other equipment. So that takes some time, and therefore we cannot host our press conference at the venue. Let's see. When are we getting Ozzy the arm wrestler back on King of the Table? That you can take that, or
that's actually an Ingen question. Ingen is the one who's responsible for the announcers,
okay,
and also commentators, rules, and matchmaking.
Okay. Why isn't there world rankings for women?
That would be another Ingen question. So maybe we should have had Ingen come on to join us. But there we do know the rankings of the women internally. Ingen does that, but as far as publishing, that's a good question. We'll have Ingen address that.
Great. And also the follow-up question from MO Hunter. He asks, who does the current EW rankings? And do you consider that to be the official EW rankings?
The EVW rankings is done by Ingen. And so it's just the numbers and the logic, and as you know, I think everybody knows that rankings can't be perfect. Sometimes it doesn't make sense in a few areas, but as far as having something that is logical and that uses actual numbers, I think our ranking system is very, very good.
Great. GB19 asks, will King of the Table rules and venue be changed to match East versus West format now?
Yes, we are making the rules and the format so the number of matches is slightly different between EVW, East versus West, and King of the Table, where King of the Table could be a tie, and so we are changing that so it's all the same for each organization.
Okay. Let's see. Benji Mac suggested 5 guys is good stuff for the Patty Challenge. Let's add Brian Shaw to the challenge. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. Absolutely. Next question. Could you have East versus West challenges held at 5 guys, Winner gets prepaid cards for 5 guys. Let's see. Victor asks, will you guys have a venue capable of 5,000 seats in the near future?
Yes. Our Canadian venue, which we're talking right now to the Toronto Sports Commissioner, we're looking for a venue that would be 5,000. That's actually the number we're looking at, and we think we would fill it in Toronto for reasons that I think everybody probably recognizes. We would have really the whole country of Canada come out, especially if Devon's on the card, of course, and we'd also draw from the U.S. and other countries as well. So I'm anticipating that venue will be the biggest that we'll have to date.
Okay. Next one. Ryan Bowen has expressed interest to be a commentator analyst for East versus West. Will you consider that?
Yes, and that's, again, that will be Ingen's decision, but that is something that is and will be considered.
Okay. Jay Corbin asks, why was Coach Ray not invited to East versus West 17?
So, again, that's determined by Ingen, who the commentators are and the announcers. And I actually supported this decision as well, and that is to have variety. I mean, if we have the same people every event, whether it's King of the Table or East versus West, I think, and Ingen also believes that becomes a little bit stale for viewers if it's the same every time. So switching back and forth and making it a little bit new and different, we think it's a good thing.
Okay. Will he be invited to our next event in Turkey?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'm actually getting with Ingen and he'll let us know who the commentators are, who the interviewers are, and he has made the determination that Neil Pickup will be the announcer, or the main announcer.
Okay, so at least we got one that's confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
Great. How is Monster Michael Todd not sponsored by Monster Energy? It seems like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, he has spoken to Monster Energy, and they came back and told him that they're not looking at new sponsorships right now. So that does make a lot of sense, and I was surprised as well. But they've put a kind of a freeze on, is what they've told him, and also what they've told us on new sponsors right now. So that could change, but right now they aren't interested in doing any sponsorships for Michael Todd or for EVW.
Okay. Thoughts on doing a post-event show with a few commentators and analysts, or is that something for the more distant future?
So we are looking at picking up, adding more people to our staff, and we need to. So that would be in probably the more distant future, but we have others that we need to add to our staff, more pressing, it's higher priority.
Okay. Next, are there going to be more qualifiers to get into East versus West main cards for other athletes this year?
The qualifiers will be in Europe, and in the U.S. and North America. That's really kind of stopped. The reason why the qualifiers have ended for a while now here is because the top athletes weren't going to the qualifiers to qualify, so we weren't getting the most elite in North America attending. So it didn't really serve the purpose that it was intended. Now in Europe, it's different. We are getting the top people competing in our qualifiers.
Will you invest more money on marketing and event advertising, maybe on major platforms like ESPN?
Yeah, we will continue to talk to broadcasters. Their new direction, though, ESPN's direction and others, isn't the same as what it was a few years ago. They're really not as interested in content or paying for content. What they're interested in is getting free content and then allowing us to use some of our sponsors on part of the spots or part of the ad space. So until we get more sponsors that are interested in that, we really can't do much with the big broadcasters. So we'll have to stay with pay-per-view and possibly streaming in the future is where we think it should go. Is if not, Netflix would be preferable. If not Netflix, Amazon, and there's others as well that we're looking at. So probably won't be so heavily focused on broadcasters as or television broadcasters as we would be in streaming companies like Netflix and Amazon.
Are you guys planning to do athlete personalized merch, like shirts and etc.?
Well, I'm not sure what is meant by athlete personalized. If it's individual athletes, we haven't done that yet, but we have athlete merch, autographed merchandise from the athletes, from all the athletes, and in some cases, matches like our straps we had at this last event. Maybe you can share about that, Dexter. That was your idea, and I think it's a good one to have, for example, each match, the two opponents signing the straps, and that's, at least that's for, that's specific to that match. So we had, for example, Yoshi and John Brzezinski sign, straps or a strap just for them. There was only one of one, and the same thing with Devin and Corey and Matt Mask and Angerbayev and down the line. So, but as far as individual athletes with signed merch, we haven't done that yet.
Okay. Next, why did you embarrass Levon?
Well, it certainly wasn't intentional. The way that happened, and the reason it's ultimately my fault, is I thought Levon's here at the event, and so is Kirill, one of the the strongest strongmen, who's also an arm wrestler. Maybe we could have them do a little exhibition match just for fun. And they both agreed, but it didn't quite happen the way that we all expected. So, because there was a scorecard when it was really not an official match. It looked like it was a real match, like it was really official. And that was embarrassing for Levon to see, and he was planning, and they were both planning to just for fun and not really, take it seriously. So, better communication up front, and earlier on would have solved that problem, and that's why, for that reason, it was my fault.
Nick's is, why is it so hard to keep the stage audience? Even more people on stage means more atmosphere. Uh, that one's a little tricky. Obviously, we don't want too many people on stage. For the reason is there are probably, I would say, almost 100 or maybe more than hundreds of cables going through the whole stage, especially with our new four, additional four cameras on the side. And the chance of it getting knocked down, it is a challenge, and we have to quickly fix it on the spot. There are probably miles and miles of cables that go through the whole facility. And so the more people we add on stage, the more challenges that we will have. And also the stage wasn't very big. And I think this time we might have the tallest stage ever. And so one of the warnings and caution, we caution all the athletes that don't get too excited, because if this time you fall off the stage, you might get hurt. Because in the past, it was pretty a 2 feet platform, and this time it was at least 5-6 feet. So we got to be a little bit more careful about that height. Michael, I'll address that audio thing in a few minutes. Let's see. Do you want to censor foul language?
No, we haven't done that. We've talked about it for gaining a bigger audience, and especially televised. If it was for the general public, we would have to have some way to to make it more PG and family friendly. But we haven't talked about really anything beyond that. At some point, we will need to probably adapt to the audience.
Okay. XAYC, you asked about if we would consider making a Patreon page. The answer is yes. I have looked into that. We are also looking into a few other options like Vimeo, Uscreen. Those are other two pages that we are looking into in order for people from certain countries that are unable to watch some of our member channel content in YouTube. But that's really, really coming out shortly. What's this underground video coming out for members only? Looks epic. You want to take that?
Well, it's it's probably the biggest Utah event that we've ever had, and it's really not me. It's Brady McIntyre with Mac's Place. It's a kind of a club for for business people, to kind of get together and there's a bar and they have events there like boxing and other sports, and it's just for the members only of this club, Mac's Club, their Mac's Place. And so I know Mac, Brady McIntyre, and he came to me and asked if I could help him put together a little event, kind of a big event. And this is before I got involved with East versus West and King of the Table, and I really didn't have time with all my other responsibilities. I said, well, I probably don't have the time to really do much here, but let me introduce you to somebody who I think would be perfect, and that's Bob Brown. And so I introduced Bob to Brady, and they were able to put this together with 8 very good athletes, including Ron Bath and Marcio Barbosa and others. So we've got some, former Cody Merritt, some EVW athletes and former athletes are participating in this, and so it ought to be pretty interesting. I think it'll be good. He wants to continue to do this in the future and maybe make it an annual event.
Next is it possible to see Gold's ARM website collaboration with EVW? Some sort of integration? The answer is yes. Yes, in the sense that we may not partner with Gold ARM directly, but we have all the data. It's all on a CSV file spreadsheet. Only thing is we have fallen behind on getting a lot of things updated on the website. We just have so many things. Matter of fact, our design guy is the same guy doing our graphics work as well. So our website and design is the one and the same. But as of early this week, we hired another graphics guy in order to supplement, all the graphical needs that that we need from a corporation standpoint. This hopefully Seoul now has a little bit more time to update the website with all the statistics and all the past match histories and ideally we keep all the data within our website and we will not need to send people to another website to get all the data. Would you consider a more UFC style venue where all spectators sit around the stage instead of only on one side?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah,
So,
that's arm wrestling related to the
yeah.
question.
So yeah, I mean, we are looking at doing that at King of the Table in Atlantic City. It was a little bit like that. We had seating on both sides, but not like, say, boxing where the stage is in the middle of the arena. But we're looking at several different venues that do have that capability, and we're looking at using that format when we can. But it won't be every event, but certain events, yes.
Oh, great. Next, will the next event in North America have more American pullers and top-level Europeans? Pullers North American will be more familiar with, like Michael Todd, Todd Hutchings, Brian Shaw, etc.
Yeah, so the next North American event will be the end of June, and that one we will have quite a few North American pullers. I don't know that we'll have the strongmen at that event, but in the future we do intend to have at least one match, probably just one match, be a strongman match with some that are also arm wrestlers. We wouldn't want to use a strongman who hadn't trained and could get injured or have a much higher likelihood of injury. But we'll also have more Europeans at the next event in the U.S. With the visa issues. We'll be able to solve more of those for this event.
And also to clarify, visa can take anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half from certain athletes, and as you all may know, we barely started. Maybe I would say the whole application just maybe slightly before Georgia, so be slightly patient on some of the athletes, and especially athletes coming in from the Eastern European bloc where it's a little bit more challenging compared to the EU countries. So be patient, and we have plans. Next, what are the short-term and long-term plans for growing the sport? And feel free to add on to this, Robert, but one of the things is we are pushing for more original content. This time we have a lot of content that we film more than ever we did, behind the scenes video. Now, as you all know, videos can take a really, really long time to edit, and so it takes a little bit more time. The one thing that we're going to be changing in the future, because raw videos, say like our raw videos can go up to hundreds of gigabytes, in raw size, and our internet at the venue at our hotel was terrible. It was anywhere from 3 to maybe on a good time 30 megabits per second. And to just give you an idea, my home internet is 60 times faster than that, right? So uploading those massive files, and then we have to wait for the editors to download and edit them. That process is a really long time. So in going forward, starting from Istanbul, we are bringing in editors to be there on site. So as soon as the raw files are ready, we'll ship it over to them. They'll edit on the spot and upload. So we are making essentially more content when people get to see behind the scenes, plus also a lot of not necessarily arm wrestling related questions, but when they get to know the athletes in person, they can ideally have a little bit more emotional connections, with the athlete, and therefore they know who they support. So that's one, and that's how we can sort of showcase the athletes to not just the biggest arm wrestling fans, but everybody in general.
Yeah.
And,
well, yeah. I mean, and the biggest way I think that we're going to increase the fan base for arm wrestling is to make the arm wrestlers popular, and so we need to do more documentaries and mini documentaries of arm wrestlers, like John Brzezinski did with Pulling John.
mm-hmm.
That created a lot of arm wrestling fans, believe it or not. I mean, and then once you have the fans of the athlete, they now start watching arm wrestling. It's not the other way around. You don't get people so much watching arm wrestling and saying, "Wow, I'm a fan. I'm gonna start watching more of these arm wrestling matches." You find people that become fans of the arm wrestler, like John Brzezinski and Devin Larratt, for example, and others, and then that increases our base. And F1, Formula One has proven that model. Tennis has proven that as well. UFC has proven that model. So we don't need to. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. It's already been done, and so all we need to do is do more of those documentaries. Devin has done a documentary, is just finishing, and that'll be a really big one as well, because as everybody knows, Devin's fan base is huge. It's going to get even bigger, which means arm wrestling is going to get bigger.
Do you guys think that tournament format has no future in the sport, and super match arm wrestling is the only way to go? I'll have you have this one.
No, I mean, I think for the most part, we're going to stick with what's worked, what's brought East versus West and King of the Table so much success, and that is super match format. But that doesn't mean that we're gonna always do super match format for other events. So, which means that we can hold events like, for example, what I'd like to do is an over the top 2 tournament, where it's really just like Over the Top in 1987 with Sylvester Stallone, and give away instead of a semi truck this time, a brand new Corvette to the winner. And I was talking to Ingen about this, and he said, I think we ought to let everybody have a chance of winning the Corvette. So every weight division gets a key, and one of those keys will start the Corvette. And but we pay all the way down to 8th place, just like the original Over the Top. So attract the best people from all over the world to come and compete for this. And the only question is, in my mind, is do we allow our East versus West athletes to compete in this tournament? There's pros and cons, and so that would be, however we do it, that would be an example of a tournament that EVW Sports would hold and promote, and that would be probably televised.
Next we have Dexter. Who's your favorite arm wrestler? Now, as part of the organizing team, it is not quite nice of me to tell people who my favorite is, for the fact that it could be used against that athlete, because it may seem that I made something biased towards him. Like all cameras are focusing at him or her more than the competitor, things like that. So it's better for me not to say it in, over, over the whole public. But if you see me in person, I'll tell it to you. But but not over a YouTube channel. Next, do you guys consider selling athletes merch at the events, and then the overall number of sales we will give the certain percentage boost to the prize money and investment for future events? We have considered that, but to just give you an idea, the merch revenue, it is probably not even 3%. We don't sell too much merch, and as you can see in our last event, we've started trying to find ways to reduce our merch pricing in order that it's more accessible to for more people to wear it. So that there isn't as much revenue coming from merch from the event as you would consider.
Now, I think we can change that, though, because this was your idea, Dexter, and I thought it was a good one, to reduce the price of the merch so that it's accessible to more fans and a wider audience. And we sold out of the jerseys. Pretty much everything was sold before we got to the event. So we didn't even have it for sale. People just wanted to come up into the athlete signing room and buy it. And so had we known that there was so much demand for it, and part of it is because the prices are more affordable, we could have sold at least double the merch that we have now. And we are getting more in to cover back orders right now as well, and then orders, new orders. So I think that could be more of a thing. In the past, merch hasn't been a very big part of East versus West sales, but I think it can be more.
AW fan said, "When will we see John the Savage again? I would love to see him against the European. I bought the last PPV just to watch him. He is fun to watch." So maybe that's a you and Ingrid question.
Yeah, that would be mainly an Ingen, up to Ingen. But if the fans, are wanting to see a certain match, that would factor in to Ingen's decision, I'm sure.
Why Kirill is not offered a match yet, or is he just not interested?
Well, I know Ingen is talking, with Kirill, or has talked with Kirill. Don't know when he would be ready, and so right now, I'm not sure who would be the best opponent for him. Maybe Brian Shaw, but again, that will be up to Ingen to decide. But there's just not a lot of opponents for Kirill because, unless the opponent was strictly a arm wrestling purist, not a strongman.
Will the next events have trading cards, perhaps unsigned and cheaper? That would be awesome. And then it could be a hunt of sorts to get signatures. Okay, so in the past, East versus West, it was held, within a 3-month gap period. And now we have it by 5-6 weeks. And the team needs time to slowly grow to the point where we can catch up to some of the work. And that's why the decision was made to not have signed cards this time, because we were just way behind. However, we have plans on making, instead of per event, it will be athletes' cards for the whole year, and it'll be closer to a traditional sports training card system. More information will be announced as when we get caught up on graphical design needs. Where are the sign match straps sold? I would like the one with Matt and Kirigali. Those are not sold. We are thinking of right now as a way to use it for promotional purposes. So maybe we'll do a giveaway at the end of our AMA session. Then let's see. Next question. Have you considered trying a 9-round super match in East versus West or King of the Table? 9-round. Oh, that's a more.
So I'm assuming that what he means is 9 matches.
No, 9 best of 9.
Oh, best of 9.
Yeah, I think that's what he meant.
Oh, I haven't talked about that. And I haven't talked to Ingen about that, but something to consider. But haven't considered it yet.
Okay. Is there a policy to censor? Honestly speaking, we have talked internally because in order to go mainstream and into potential national television, we got to be careful on some of the swear words. But as of right now, we have not officially have one, and all the athletes can tell you so, because when we do have an official policy, all athletes will know about it. But at this time, not yet, especially not for the past event.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what was meant by censoring. That might be what was meant, the language. But as far as censoring for other things, for things that would be highly offensive on our site or on podcasts, we're that would be. It would be for us. We really value, free speech, and so we want to hear what our, what our fans and what our, what the arm wrestling community wants to tell us. And so, for me, it's different for different cultures. So in the East, it's very disrespectful to say certain things or do things certain ways. But for me, and personally, you can say whatever you want. You can, give me, negative comments or what. To me, it's constructive because, otherwise we don't know where to improve in a lot of cases. So. And also to me, it's what made America the greatest country that's ever been in the history of the world is one of those things is free speech. So I'm a big believer in it myself. I'm not going to require that of everybody, but for me, you can say whatever you want. And Dexter, I think you feel the same, but maybe you can.
No, that is absolutely correct. I had a meeting with the moderators, and I also kind of told them that the new direction that we're heading is that as long they are critical, but they give constructive criticism, it's a constructive way of telling us we got to fix something, right? So hey, the audio is terrible. Those to me are okay, but if the comment has no value whatsoever and it was just a way of them venting, then it doesn't do anything but hurt the whole sport in general. Because imagine if a new non-arm wrestler comes in, watch the video and see one of the comments is like, they might generalize and say all arm wrestlers are rude and crude, right? So that's sort of the kind of guideline. If it's constructive, we are okay. If you're not here to promote some pirated stream, you're also okay. But the censorship was particularly in regards to Matt Mass match. So I know exactly what they were asking about, but no.
But since we're on the subject too, so we would have to have some guidelines though for us if there's comments that are like just really vulgar, really cross the line, we would have to
Oh, absolutely,
censor that.
absolutely.
But they're very few and far between comments.
Yeah.
It pretty much anything goes. Is if it's directed toward me, or
Yeah.
sounds like you're feeling the same similar ways. So just so people know that that's my belief, and that's
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's really up to the person. I mean, it's up to each individual person, I think.
Right. Next is Matt Rhodes still a shareholder of East versus West? If so, why is he not so involved anymore? To be honest, I don't even know who Matt Rhodes is.
So
So you have to take this one.
he's not involved. He was involved with King of the Table, not East versus West, from my understanding. So, but he is not involved in East versus West or King of the Table at this point.
Lockdown King, what's the best advice for someone wanting to get into arm wrestling? Any workout routines you can recommend? So this time we had a special video session with almost every athlete, and some of them were with Robert, some of them with me, and actually most of it is with a guy, one of my good buddies. Shout out to Drew Gallagher. He's a 2-time winning Emmy award-winning producer. He does a lot of work in Hollywood and whatnot, but he has never been to any arm wrestling event. So I dragged him here with me, just on the pretense of just showing him what it is. And he's a professional host, right? He interviews all the top Hollywood stars, and was like, hey, you want to learn arm wrestling? And who better to learn arm wrestling from other than Giannis? So I says, hey, Giannis, let's do a special video with you and my buddy Drew. He has never even seen an arm wrestling table at all. Why don't we get something going? And so we filmed that whole thing. And frankly, that is one of the better videos that I've seen that I think any new aspiring arm wrestlers could benefit from. So stay tuned for that video. Let's see. Arm wrestling cards are not canceled or discontinued. They are suspended as we are working on a new batch. Let's see. If I may suggest something, I would make walkouts longer. Okay, we'll take that into consideration.
I think we are going to make walkouts longer wherever it's possible. Sometimes the venue, it's just not possible to have the longer walkouts, and because we're changing venues each event practically, we just don't know exactly. But yeah, longer walkouts is what we are wanting.
Okay. Now, in regards to walkouts, I can address that. We originally had a plan to do a longer walkout video rather than just right behind the stage. And when we are building something, if you notice that we have not only the 3 main cameras that aims at the table, we also have the 4, I would say, table height cameras. We also have the jib camera that sort of like pans and gets the really nice view of the whole crowd. And finally, one of the more important cameras is, you can call it the gimbal camera, where we have this time Aaron Castillo holding it, and he would float behind the scenes and he's usually situated right behind the athletes, the head ref's shoulder, to capture a very unique angle that's very, very difficult to get on a stationary camera, right? And if you actually notice that he had to switch cameras midway because there was interference. Now, when we are testing things, it works 99% of the time. But there is, from my understanding, there was a spot that if he stood on it or like he crosses, the whole signal would be, disrupted, and then it takes a long while for it to be reconnected. So he had to drop that camera. He tried several times and going back and forth, but he couldn't. So he had to grab a backup camera, and that camera is wired, and that wire has has limitations because it's hardwired. So he wasn't able to. So we couldn't plan for the full walkout like we originally did. But yes, so we did have plans on those, and it's not quite as easy to plan for certain things like that because during testing, when there's nobody in the crowd, it's very different. But as you all know, like the more people, the more cell phones, all these emit some sort of electromagnetic waves that could distort and disrupt the signals. So that's why it's very hard to plan for proms unless we have contingencies. And which leads me, maybe now, Robert, now it's almost an hour past our starting time. Let's address the elephant in the room, which is the audio. Now, first and foremost, we want to come out and say there was zero intentions and zero orders from me or any from the leadership team and the AV team to mute the mics of some of the matches. Primarily, it was Matt's and Devin's match. John Berzing's, I think it was partially muted. Now, to give everybody an idea, that was not part of our team. That audio engineer is not part of that team. We did not hire that person. We did not get to go through that interview. It was somebody from the venue's so it's basically a third party guy. That person has never seen arm wrestling, and that person may have been confused at times. And it's a really unfortunate situation because it may seem like we were targeting them, but we can tell you for certain we did not do anything of that sort. Now, there was a question earlier that asked about if how do we prevent this from going in the future? Just like Aaron having a backup camera ready to go at moment's notice, on Thursday, we tested a new type of audio system that feeds into the table. So it's a really small, tiny microphone. And we have another microphone it's a shotgun microphone that hangs directly above the table, pointed down. So at the very minimum, if something goes wrong, it's a very easy flip of a switch to get some audio, right? We understand audio is really important, especially for the two North Americans. Well, I guess they're Canadians too. That they're just more vocal, right? They're a lot more vocal on stage than the other athletes, and it was just an unfortunate way of how that all turned out. So that's also one thing that we learned, right? We need to have contingency in place. And the other thing that I've spent talking a lot with Robert, and feel free to chime in, that we feel that every time we travel, we are always we only really, to be really, really honest, like somebody mentioned about us having a family and maybe alluding that we are using the same people, and actually that is the complete opposite. We always work with new people most of the time through most venues. There might be some we for instance, Aaron and Robert Kelly, they were part of the Atlantic City team, but they don't travel with us to Europe, right? But that's only 2 out of maybe 10 in the production team. We are looking, and we've started making phone calls with some of the people that we really like, and trying to see if we can come to some level of an agreement where they travel to every event with us, so everybody knows how our production and how our show goes. The second component is I could probably post a video of the system that we have to work with there, and it is probably like 4 times more buttons than a traditional video switcher. I'll post that on my social media channel, and you guys will see how insane it is. and that's an esports stadium, and they had server rooms, and I'll show you a little bit more behind. We'll release a behind the scenes video maybe within a couple of weeks, and it's incredibly challenging, right? You might say, well, let's prepare for it and train. Yes, you can train, but when there is something that goes wrong, and that's usually when it's a test of whether how well you know the system. It's usually when something goes wrong, right? So with that analogy, we are considering also buying our own equipment, and they're really massive. They're incredibly massive, and you have to ship them like almost a month ahead of time. So it's almost when we're done with one event, we're gonna have to ship all that equipment to the next event. It's very costly, but that's why we have not done it in the past. But maybe going forward, we might have to consider that because having the operators, they're all good operators, but sometimes they struggle to figure out the new system, and troubleshooting that on the fly is challenging, as you see. And you can always, and audio was definitely an issue. So we know what the problem is. We know how to fix it. Just like we had errors in lighting in Georgia, and that was really the first event me and Robert put together from almost A to Z. So we made that determination not to make that mistake again. So that was our first event from scratch. And so no lightings. We paid a lot of attention to lighting. Next event, we will make sure that lighting and audio, and ideally whatever problems that we can think of, we have a contingency built into it. That is kind of the gist of things. We're not trying to point fingers at anybody, because ultimately we are trying to do our best to make sure not to repeat. I think that's the biggest thing. And I don't know, Robert, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah. So, and I think what Dexter's talking about, and what most people know, is that it's the audio at the table between the athletes. So we mic the athletes so you can hear what they're saying. They're not really saying a whole lot typically during the match. They're talking on break in their corners, and people like to hear that, especially if they're characters, right? So we have to have that audio for sure, and we have to have the backup plans like that Dexter talked about, and we will. So each time there's an issue, we will fix it, and we will address it for future events. So I think having the backup plans in place ahead of time is critical, and having more time to go through and do dry runs with everybody is critical. This event, we hired a lot of outside people from the venue. Required some of those people to be hired by them, and they're not arm wrestlers, so they don't know a lot of things. They don't know who the athletes are, and when we tell them, hey, we need this to go live here, they don't. So the way to address that, and the way Dexter's done that, is we're going to use, instead of outside people that are experts, they're just not experts in arm wrestling. So we've got to use more of our people, and we've got to hire more people in audio, in the visual, in AV, to help us, so that we've got the best of both worlds. We've got really good talent on production and audio, and they know the arm wrestling world as well. I think the two things are really important.
Yeah, to just give you an idea, when we say how does the production people, when they don't know arm wrestling, affect our whole production? So all the athletes get mic'd up behind, backstage, and they will have a program at the run of the show that says, okay, which athlete is going up next. But the problem is they don't know which athlete. Just by having their names on, they may get confused. Like, is that John Brosing or Kanai? Right? Obviously that might be a little bit easier, but who's who? And so they could get mic. They could be put on the wrong mic. So when they go on stage, the audio engineer at the back there who's manipulating things is like, yeah, you told me John's on mic 3 and 4, but no, it's never mic 3 and 4. It's actually mic 1 and 2 because that backstage person who doesn't know arm wrestling, doesn't know the athletes, got the wrong, mic'd up the wrong person. So it would be gone the whole time. And from the audio engineering standpoint, there is 2 audio engineers. So the one question before that was, if you guys couldn't hear the sound, why do we fix it in time? So there are 2 audio engineers. One is focused on the broadcast, and the other engineer is in person for the venue. And at the venue, we cannot hear the athletes themselves, primarily because there is a little bit of confidentiality thing going on, right? If, let's say, one of the athletes go back to his corner and he starts talking about his own strategy, we might not want his opponent to be hearing that and picking up on that and figuring out that, oh, he knows my counter, I'm going to counter his counter kind of thing. So typically we don't have those microphones from athletes to be available at the venue. So the only way that we would have known about it is which we will have going forward, is somebody who is watching the stream the whole time, and he has direct access and communication with our team in order to fix problems as soon as we can. Now, there is usually anywhere from, depending on your internet and where you are in location to the our servers that are located around the world, that could be a few minutes delay as well. So it could take us a few minutes before we realize the problem, and takes us potentially a few more minutes to resolve the problem. So keep that in mind. We can't fix things on the fly, but we will have more contingencies. So now, one of the big lessons learned is we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll say, what are all the possible things that can go wrong at an event, right? We'll list all of them out. It could be a really long list, and we'll look at what can we do to mitigate any of these issues. Cameras down, audio's down, lighting's the bulb blew out, right? All these kind of things, we have to start putting it together, and it's one of the learning things that we have to do. Primarily, it's worse when we have to travel to new venues, and so this, in my opinion, it's a temporary problem that we are facing because we have never done an event. They have not done any arm wrestling event at some of the venues that we are holding and plan on holding. And as soon as we go there once, like say the Arlington Esports stadium, it's so beautiful. We want to go back there. But guess what? The next time we get back in there, we know all the problems we face. We'll make sure it never happens again. And it'll be so much faster. The learning, the learning process has already been kind of completed by then, right? So the audio we recognize that was a big problem post-fact. And we will do everything in our power to make sure that it never, ever happens again.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. Mini documentary videos on Fia and Marlin was awesome, right? Thank you. Will we get full rankings for each weight class? I think that is being worked on. That is more of an in-game issue, I would imagine. Let's see.
Yep. He is working on that.
Okay. So, the Insider Club. What is the Insider Club? So, if you can see a button to join, it's $4.99 a month. And the idea was that we'll start, publishing special behind-the-scenes content. And those special behind-the-scenes content would be only unique to paying members. And the whole concept behind that is, we're going to increase our revenue from that, and we'll at some point take some of that and pass it back off to the athletes so that they could also make some money on the side, right? And ideally, we have more and more content. The more and more content that we can push out to the universe, the better likelihood that we can, and faster, we can grow the sport mainstream.
Yeah, and I think what what you're talking about in particular, Dexter, is the athletes that provide training videos and how they train. That's what we're asking for additional content for our members channel. And so they would get revenue from that as well. So it's another way to subsidize their income from arm wrestling through our channel and through their training videos.
Yeah, and later today we will be releasing all the full match videos, and it'll be first released to the members, and a week later it'll be open to all public. So that's also like another perk if you've missed our pay-per-view. Next is YouTubers. Why don't we invite more YouTubers like iShowSpeed, Jake Paul, etc. Now we've actively tried our best to invite as many as we can, but more often than not, first we don't have direct access to some of these some of these celebrities, but two, it is they could be pretty pricey. Their appearance fee could be in the six figures, and we don't have the budget for these people. But yeah, we would love if they would like a VIP seat. I'm more than happy to give it to them. Let's see. Some Brad Hackett praised our reffing this time, Luke and Bill. So that was pretty nice.
And then also Haristo and Robert Cornick. Yeah, so the four refs were incredible. In fact, I was just talking to Luke last night. He's in Utah now, getting ready for this Max Underground event tonight. And I let him know, this was extremely good reffing. And I think everybody would agree. We didn't even have any protests. Not that it necessarily indicates how good the reffing is, but it was, in my opinion, extremely good. So
yes.
Thanks for that comment.
Yeah. Al Sams said standardization, same venue, same crews. In the past, it was always, from my understanding, almost all the EVW was at Pendic. We will obviously make it into our rotation to go back there, but we feel like we need to satisfy the craving for arm wrestlers around the world, and therefore it would be beneficial to have our events at various venues throughout the world in order to capture them. So it might be, for some venues in the future, it could be a 2-year cycle before we get back there, and the ones that we work better with would be maybe in a yearly cycle. So let's see. As I'm reading these, finding good systems, correct. We are trying our best to find good systems. So Armenian arm wrestler, switching cameras views at crucial time was bad, but can be corrected going forward. You're absolutely correct. We will try to standardize the team so that way everybody is a pure arm wrestler, and they know what angle is what arm wrestlers would like to see. So that is also a change that's going to happen. Having an audience panoramic mics and mix into the audio adds to the atmosphere to the event. I agree, and we will take that into consideration. We understand that sometimes the energy goes down in between matches or in between rounds, or arm wrestling has a lot of kind of downtime, if you want to think of it that way. But yeah, so we'll figure a way out to hype everything and capture all that for the fans who are thousands of miles away from the venue and couldn't make it. Having the ref stand in front of the athletes during the walkout was such a blunder. The stage was, in all fairness, the stage was pretty small, but and they were tight. But yeah, that will be fixed, and that was kind of our fault as well, to not brief the refs on where. Partially was the walkout was switched at the very, very last second when they figured out that the cameras couldn't, the cables wasn't long enough to do our original walkout. So there's a lot of last minute changes that really damages the whole, the whole flow of the production. Let's see. Okay, I'll do one more question, and and Benji, if you could do this for me, I'll have everybody on the chat put up a random number. Then let's do 0 to 100, 0 to 100, and if they're the same numbers, then we'll give out more than one sign strap. But the person closest to the number, will get it. So everybody start putting up your number anywhere from 0 to 100, and I'll have Benji run a randomizer, and he'll pick one and let me know, and we'll ship you the sign strap. It'll be randomized. It'll be like in a really big bag. I don't know who I'm pulling out, but when I pull it out, I'll let you know the name of the athlete that signed your strap. And while that's going on, let's see on the last question. Sound needs to be balanced for crowd and ambient, correct? We'll do that. I haven't been.
I can give you a random between 1 and 100 if Benji's.
Oh, okay. Well, should we put that in front of the camera?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Everybody's throwing in. Let's give it another 100. Okay. We'll do it on cameras. So, sorry, Benji, but we have our producer back there. He's gonna. We'll do it in front of the camera. Not quite ready yet because it's flowing, but as soon as we get all that numbers in, we'll do it live on camera. And so there is no. We essentially what Robert has been trying to push the whole company and organization to move forward is we're going to be. Obviously, there are some sensitive, confidential information, but our goal is to be growing the whole sport, right? We want to grow the whole sport. And one way that we are doing it is through transparency. We made a mistake, we apologize. And that we feel this is one of the best ways to acknowledge the problem in order to not repeat the problem, right? Rather than brushing under the rug. So we apologize that it feels very intentional, but I can tell you for a fact that we did not. We really did not, intend to mute those microphones. And the issue, if for those people who were at the venue, and the behind the scenes video that will be released in a week or maybe 2 weeks, the audio guy was the only guy who wasn't in the room, in the control room. He was situated far, back of the hall, and which is why it was very difficult to get to him and tell him something was wrong. By the time we figured it out, it could be, it could be a really long time. So that was also another issue that was a challenge. So going forward, we also know that the placement of the audio engineer will have to be in close proximity with the stage. So if something goes wrong, we can run to him and tell him to fix it. So those are all the small little things that we are learning. Every venue, they have their own setup. Unless we insist on certain things, it won't get done. Or and usually it comes with a price, because when we change their operations from where it's already been plugged in, we have to pay an additional fee. So now we learn how the importance of having the placement of where the audio board is. We'll pay that fee in order to get it moved to be closer to where we can have access. Okay, with that, while it's coming in, Robert, do you have any last minute comments?
No, we just have more content coming. We have the, I'm not sure, I think that's being done right now for the Cold Plunge Challenge. That was on our podcast with Ingen and Devin and myself and Corey. Devin said before the matches, he said Canadians are tougher than Americans. and he said, and that's evidenced by how cold it is in Canada. You have to be tough even to live here. And then I said, well, why don't we settle it? You represent Canada and I'll represent Americans, and we have a cold plunge challenge. So we did the day after the event at at our big sponsors facility, and Devin was pretty entertaining. So shivering uncontrollably, and The guy is tough, though. I can say that.
Great stuff. Well, stay tuned for the full release. Probably will definitely be next week, so stay tuned for that. Okay, I think we've got all the numbers by people. Aaron, would you mind just being on camera? So, and when you run the
All right. Can you all see it?
Yep.
It's visible. Okay. I'm gonna roll. Hit the roll button. Right now it's just at 61. This is not the number. I'm just gonna prove to you guys that this is random. We're gonna do it twice, random, and then the third time will be the number that we end up picking. Roll. That's a random 7. Second time, random 89. So the third time will be our winner for today.
okay, that's
Y'all ready?
yeah,
73.
73.
Is that visible?
73. Okay, well, Benji, let me know who the winner is, and the winner, please contact me at Dexter at EVW sports.com, and I'll get the signed strap sent out to you. So, well, if there's no other questions, thank you all for coming. We are happy to answer your questions outside of this, this session. Send me an email, or if you have any generic questions like where's your tickets or where your orders are at, where's the next event, then you can send it to our centralized email system where multiple people actually have access to. It's contact at evwsports.com.
And that's singular, right? Contact at evwsports.com.
Yep. No S. So, well, thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.